Imagine waking up in a city you've never seen. You don't know your name. You don't know where you came from. You don't know who you are. This isn't a movie. This isn't a thought experiment. This is something that happens to real people. And when it does, they vanish from their own lives. Tonight, we're looking at dissociative fugue, a condition where the brain simply turns off the self. In September 2006, a middle-aged man walked into a Denver hospital. He had no wallet, no identification, and no idea who he was. Staff asked him basic questions. What's your name? Where do you live? He couldn't answer. He didn't know. His fingerprints weren't in any system. His face didn't match any missing persons report. For all intents and purposes, this man didn't exist. His name was Jeff Ingram. But it would take national television for anyone, including his fiancée, to find him. Dissociative fugue is rare, deeply rare. But when it happens, it's absolute. The person doesn't just forget where they left their keys. They forget everything. Their name, their family, their entire personal history. It's as if someone pressed delete on the hard drive of their identity. The clinical definition describes it as sudden, unexpected travel away from home, combined with the inability to recall one's past or the formation of a new identity. According to the Cleveland Clinic, onset is usually sudden and almost always triggered by severe trauma or overwhelming stress. The brain, faced with something it cannot process, simply leaves, takes the body somewhere else, and leaves the self behind. People in fugue states can function. They can talk, buy bus tickets, check into hotels, but they're doing it all without knowing who they are. Wikipedia documents that people with dissociative fugue may travel thousands of miles during an episode, which can last from days to months. And here's what makes it truly unsettling. When they come back, they don't remember any of it. Days, weeks, months, just gone. Jeff Ingram's 2006 episode wasn't his first. According to documented records, he'd experienced a previous amnesia episode in 1994, 12 years earlier, and he would experience another in 2007. 3 separate times, Jeff Ingram's mind simply erased him from himself. After his face appeared on national television in 2006, his fiancée Penny recognized him. She came to Denver and took him home. But here's the thing. His memories never fully returned. Penny knew him. But in some ways, he never came all the way back. One documented patient described the experience as being here and then not here, having no identity of herself at all. Think about what that means. You wake up, and the person looking back at you in the mirror is a stranger wearing your skin. Jeff Ingram isn't the only case. These disappearances have been documented throughout history, and some of them are genuinely strange. In 1926, the famous mystery writer Agatha Christie disappeared for 11 days. She was found at a spa hotel, registered under a different name. She claimed to suffer from amnesia. Historian Lucy Worsley has suggested this was likely a genuine dissociative fugue, triggered by the stress of a failing marriage. For 11 days, one of the most famous writers in England was simply missing. Her car was found abandoned. A nationwide search ensued, and she was living under an assumed name the whole time. She didn't remember any of it, or so she said. The public was skeptical, but modern psychology suggests her story might have been entirely true. In 2005, an even stranger case emerged. A man was found wandering the streets of Kent, England. He couldn't or wouldn't speak. He communicated only through art, and when someone put him in front of a piano, he played for hours. The media called him the Piano Man. His identity became a media obsession. Who was he? Where did he come from? Why could he play Tchaikovsky but not say his own name? Eventually, he was identified, a psychiatric patient who had gone missing from his care facility. His fugue state had lasted months. His music was his only thread to who he'd been. These cases raise a question that sits at the edge of psychology and something darker. Is the self more fragile than we believe? Can it simply shatter? The Cleveland Clinic notes that recovery from fugue is usually rapid, but some cases are what they call refractory. They resist treatment entirely. The memories don't come back. The person who lived that life before is simply gone. And someone new has to learn to exist in the space they left behind. Research suggests that fugue states are a protective mechanism. The brain, facing unbearable stress, chooses escape over destruction. But escape has a cost. The person doesn't feel the trauma, but they also don't feel anything. Their entire emotional history, their relationships, their sense of self, gone. Jeff Ingram came home, but he had to rebuild relationships from scratch. Learn to love people he didn't remember meeting. Trust faces that felt like strangers. Imagine meeting your fiancée for the first time, while she's crying because you don't remember proposing. That's what fugue does. It steals the before. According to documentation, people in fugue states do not remember any events that occurred during the episode itself once they return to their pre-fugue state. So there are now two gaps: what happened before the fugue and what happened during it. Two voids where a life should be. The person who traveled across the country, checked into hotels, maybe took a job under a different name. That person is a ghost. They existed, but left no one behind to remember them. And here's where the clinical explanation starts to feel insufficient. Because these cases often involve details that don't quite add up. How does someone with no memory of themselves navigate airports, buses, new cities? How do they know how to function while not knowing who they are? The procedural memories remain: how to tie shoes, how to speak, how to hail a taxi. But the semantic memory, the story of self, vanishes. The Merck Manual describes dissociative amnesia as involving one or more episodes where the person loses their identity or forms an entirely new one. A new identity. Not confusion about who they are, but the formation of someone entirely different, living a life that isn't theirs, building relationships that never belonged to them. There are documented cases of people starting families during fugue states. Children conceive with partners they would later have no memory of meeting. And then one day, the fugue ends. They wake up, and the life they built, the people who loved them, are strangers. Or worse, abandoned. What happens to those people? The wife who doesn't know her husband has another life. The child who won't understand why their father never came home. If someone you know vanishes suddenly, especially after trauma, consider that they might not have chosen to leave. They might not even know they're gone. Resources, like the National Missing and Unidentified Person System, NAMIUS, exist for exactly this reason. It might help you find someone who's forgotten how to find themselves. Treatment, when it works, typically involves psychotherapy, focused on recovering memories and addressing the underlying trauma that triggered the fugue. But there's no guarantee. Some memories may return in fragments. Others never come back at all. The person learns to live with the gaps. Jeff Ingram's fiancée stayed with him. She chose to rebuild their relationship from nothing, to love someone who was, in many ways, a different person than the man she'd agreed to marry. That takes a particular kind of courage, to love someone who can't remember why you matter, to stay when staying means starting over. If you find this kind of thing interesting, you might want to subscribe. We cover stories like this every week. The strange places where psychology and the unexplained intersect. Because fugue states don't just erase memory, they reveal something uncomfortable about the nature of identity itself. We think we are continuous. That the person who woke up this morning is the same person who went to sleep last night. But what if that's just a story we tell ourselves? What if the thread that connects yesterday to today is more fragile than we want to believe? What if it can simply snap? Jeff Ingram didn't choose to disappear. Agatha Christie didn't plan her vanishing. The piano man didn't decide to communicate only through music. Something in their brains, some protective mechanism we don't fully understand, made a choice for them. Escape, at any cost. And when they came back, when the self rebooted, they had to learn who they were all over again. From photographs, from stories, from people who remembered them when they couldn't remember themselves. There's something deeply human about that, and something deeply terrifying. The clinical explanation tells us dissociative fugue is a response to trauma, a circuit breaker, a way for the mind to protect itself. But that doesn't make it less unsettling, because every explanation still leaves us with the same image. A person waking up in a city they don't recognize, looking down at hands they don't remember, and wondering, who am I? Who was I? And knowing they might never find the answer.